Hello, welcome to my live coding stream. Today I'm going to try and build some fireworks with HTML and CSS, and that's it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I hope you either learn something or at least you get a laugh out of it. So here I go. I'm going to start the same way that I have done the last few nights, because it's night for me. I'm in Japan at the moment. I'm going to open up VS Code, Visual Studio Code. That's my text editor. I am going to create a new directory. I'm going to create episode 4 because this is the 4th time I've done this. I'll open that over here, and then I'm going to create an index.html file. I'm going to create an index.html file where I can write some HTML, and I'm going to type in hello world and load that in the text editor. So here we go. Oh, not in the text editor, in Safari, sorry. Open with Safari, so we've got a web page. We do if it opens in the right Safari. Here we go. Okay, hello world. So, how am I going to create fireworks? Well, I'm going to use CSS animations, and I'm going to use divs, or at least that's the plan. So, let's start. I'm going to start by just adding a div. One div, two divs. Let's start with one div, and some style. So I'm going to call this. What are we going to call one dot on the fireworks? We're just going to call it a dot. So let's style a dot. Actually, no, first I want to style the body. I want to style the body background because fireworks aren't visible if it's daytime. So let's make this black. And I'm going to add some styles to the dot. I am going to first set the size. So let's try 10 pixels. The background color, let's start with red. That's one dot, and I'm going to make that round. So I'm going to just do that so I can adjust the size later without having to worry about adjusting the border radius. Okay, so that's one dot. Now I want lots of dots, but I want them to be in a circle. I want them to expand outwards. So how am I going to do that? Well, first of all, I don't think I can make them all have the same class because the movement is going to be different. So I'm going to have to add a bunch of different classes. I'm not even going to bother trying to name them. Maybe T1 for trajectory 1, T2, T3, T4, T5. I don't know if I mentioned this in my last streams, but you can actually apply multiple classes to a div by just separating them with a space. So let me start by putting all of the dots. I'm going to use position absolute, and I'm going to put them centered on the page. Okay, so they're all in the same spot. Now for T1, well, I think they're all going to start in the same position. So I think the thing that changes depending on the dot is the animation. So I'm going to have to make a bunch of different animations, I think. So let's just try. I'm going to add some keyframes. So I'm going to add first the first trajectory, the keyframes for the first trajectory, and so. Let's just try duration of 2 seconds, linear. I don't think that we really want it to be linear easing, but that's a good start. So 2 second duration, linear easing, and T1, because that's the keyframe. So let's give this a crack. 0% to 100%. And what I want to do is this number 1, well, let's just start with where 1 would be on a clock. So I'm going to open up my calculator, 360. Let me put it over here so you can see it. All right, 12. I should be able to do that in my head, shouldn't I? 30%. I want to move it 30% up this way. So how do I do that? Well, I think the easiest way to do this is translate it upwards. So make it move upwards and then use a rotation transform to like spin it each of those around. So let's try that. In fact, I think I can just apply transform. No, I don't know. Let me start without the rotation. Let me start without the rotation and just make a single dot move out. That's a good place to start. So, explode. I'm gonna call this explode. The animation keyframes. So explode starts with transform translate 0 0. So basically start where it would normally start, and it ends at translate. Actually, let's just translate y, which is the up down axis. We'll start where we start, and we'll move, say, 100 pixels up. Why not? Okay, that didn't work. It didn't work at all. Why didn't it work? Okay, I'm gonna. Well, if anyone's in the chat and they can see why it didn't work, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to do some troubleshooting. So I'm gonna start by trying to add a background color to make sure this is being applied properly. I'm gonna start. Then I'm gonna remove these. So I'm going to comment them out. The reason I could do that all in one go is because I have this editor plugin, which lets me. Let me not use the editor plugin. Let me do this the old-fashioned way. So I can add this, and what this does, by the way, is it comments out the HTML tags so that the browser ignores them. Okay, so background color is being applied, which means this T1 class is being applied. So why is the animation not working? The animation has a duration, it has the easing, it has this. So let me try something else. Let me just try moving translate to here to see. Well, that's not working. I would have thought that would have worked. So I want to get this working before I do anything else. I see. That should be transform, not translate. That was my problem. It was a silly mistake. Okay. Well, it moved. That's a good start. It's a good start, but it doesn't look anything like what fireworks should look like. So let's try. I think this is the first thing I want to try is try changing the easing. So I think fireworks, if I think about fireworks, when they explode, they're faster and then they go slower towards the outside. So ease out is what I want, but this is not what fireworks look like. First, they're probably faster. I mean, there's the slower duration, shorter duration. And I think also this ease out is maybe not the nicest easing. But I'm going to just try adding a bunch of them. A bunch of dots. My hands, the way I'm speaking with my hands is probably kind of silly. Maybe it's self-conscious. Okay, so this is a good start. Now what I want to do is, instead of having to like create separate animations for each of these, I just want to use the same explode animation, but just rotate everything. So to try doing that, the problem is that rotation is a transform. And so if I set, say, transform, rotate 90 degrees, that's not going to do anything. So let me remove the animation. So this is the only transform attribute being applied. And I need to set the transform origin to, like, I don't know, 90. I'm just going to call it Okay, so let me explain what I've done here. First, I had, like, when I apply an animation, what I'm doing is I'm applying a transform. I'm applying a transform which changes value. So initially, it'll apply this transform that translates it, well, 0 pixels, and gradually changes this transform, so it's translating between 0 and 100 pixels. But then if I can only apply one transform for a single class. So if I remove this animation, if I remove the animation property, then you'll see that the rotation is only applied, well, this animation is not in progress. So what I want to do is I want to be able to apply 2 separate transform properties. And the way to do that is to, well, does anyone know what the way to do that? I'll give you like 3 seconds to write it out if you know in the chat. Okay, so the way to do this is I can just create a separate wrapper element. So I can, for example, apply the T1 class, the transform class, on the outside, and I can put the actual dot that's rendered on the inside. And that way I can apply one transform to the outer element and one transform to the inner element. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to add a wrapper here. And I'm going to add a wrapper here, and I'm just going to, for the moment, try to do this with 2 dots. Okay, so first, because the outer element is the one I want to apply a position to, I'm going to need to move this. I don't like this. Okay, I'm gonna put dot, and then I'm gonna put inner. So actually, I've got 3 classes now. I've got dot, I've got inner, inner, and I've got T1. So let me implement this, and then I'll explain what's happening. So dot is where the positioning is going to go, which I accidentally removed. And then this inner is where the actual color is going to be defined. And then T1 through to however many is going to be where the animation is defined. Okay, so I can move this rotate. So what I can do is I can put, well, let's try this. I'm going to try putting the animation on inner and try putting the transform on the outer. That's not quite what I want, is it? Let's try not transforming that way. Oh, there we go. That's exactly what I want. So let me see if I can figure out how it works myself so that I can explain it. Okay, so we've got. Actually, let me just add a few more of these so it looks a bit better, and then I'll explain it, or attempt to. Okay, so I'm going to need to add 5 of these, and I want to space these out. So the first one, oh, what's 360 divided by 5 is 72. So let me, do I want to divide it by 5? Not really. I want to divide it, I don't know, I'm just going to try it. Sometimes it's easier to just try these things. 216, 288, and 360. Yeah, that's what I want. Or 0. So I don't even actually have to apply any rotation to this one. Yay! Okay. So what is happening here? How does this work so far? Well, I've got 10 divs, but I've got 5 outer divs. These are Each of these lines contains one div, which, if you remember, is kind of like a box. And inside that box, it's got another div. And so to the outside div, I'm applying two classes. And each of these classes have some styles. The first thing I'm doing is I'm positioning each of those dots in the very center of the screen. And then what I'm doing is to each of those dots, I'm applying another class, which rotates the whole thing by a differing amount of, a different angle. And so inside of that sort of tiny little box that I've got, I'm also rendering this inner div. And this inner div is a circle. But the inner div also has an animation applied to it, which moves it away from the center. It translates it across the screen in whichever direction is... Let me have a look. In whichever direction that the y-axis is. And because the outer box is being rotated, that y-axis is also being rotated. So that's how we get this kind of thing. So I think I need more of these if I want to make it look like fireworks. So I'm going to go through and add a bunch of these. Now this would be easier if I was using JavaScript. I wouldn't have to do this all manually. That's okay. So how many of these do I want? Any ideas? Nope. I'm going to try 12. That's a lot of code to keep writing, but that's okay. One more. And then I have to... Actually, yeah, so I want 12, but I only need 11 classes, because one of them is like a rotation of 0 degrees, which is not a rotation. So no, I'm gonna do this one in my head. 360 divided by 12 is I should know this. It's 30 degrees. Oh yeah, I did that earlier on because that's what a clock is. Okay, so 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, 120 degrees, 150 degrees. Yep, this is kind of boring. Hopefully the result is worth it. 210, 240, 270, 300, and 330. Okay, so that kind of looks like the beginning of some fireworks. Now, one thing is fireworks, they kind of fade out. So instead of just disappearing and going back to the center, what I want to do is I want to make them start bright and then fade out and then disappear afterwards. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to make it so the firework has an opacity of 0. I'm going to start by doing this, which will make it disappear. And then I'm going to update this animation. So I'm going to animate it from an opacity of 1 to an opacity of 0. Okay, so I got a question from Jason, which is, how would the process differ using JavaScript? So the thing that would differ with JavaScript is that instead of having to manually write out 12 different divs, you can automatically add these divs. So let me just see if I can quickly show you that. I think yesterday I used a script, and yesterday I was doing things like alert. I was displaying these boxes. But another thing you can do with scripts is you can do something called document.append child, which adds document.body.append child, which lets you add elements programmatically. So I could add, for example, to actually add one of these, I'd have to do document.create element. Sorry, my keyboard is actually broken. It keeps pressing the same thing over and over again sometimes. Div, then I can do dot class name, which is how you'd set this class, equals dot t1. Then I can do const inner dot equals the same thing. So this is a little bit complicated. Class name inner, then I can do dot append child. So basically you can build up these things automatically, and so you can see this is a little bit more work than just writing it out. But once you've done this, I can append this to the, you can see this one up here. I wonder why that's coming down here instead of being positioned correctly. Well, anyway, the thing that you can do then is you can use this thing called a loop. So I can say a for loop, and I'm not going to explain how all this works, but basically I can say I want to add 12 of these. Just do this 12 times, or 24 times, or however many times, and you can add these programmatically. Is how you'd say this. You can set number based on this. Yeah, you can see that I've added 12. I'd have to figure out what's going wrong to make it actually expand like this, but JavaScript allows you to do this kind of thing. Or I can change this to 24, and now there's 24 of them. So basically, instead of having to write all of this out, it becomes, writing all of this out once is not so much of a problem, but the thing that you get from JavaScript is if you want to change things, like if I want to change how all of these work, then I only have to change that once. So that's the benefit there. Anyway, back to just making these fireworks a little bit nicer. Like, what else can I do? So actually, that's looking surprisingly good for me. I didn't think it would look that good on my first attempt. I'm just going to change the size of these dots, make them a little bit smaller. What else could I do? I could, for example, I could add another wrapper around these and use that to position them in different parts of the screen. So I could say class equals 1. I'm going to call it F1 for firework 1, and then I'm going to copy and paste this. And again, if I was using JavaScript, I could automate this process. So now both of these are actually in the same spot at the moment, but by doing this, I can translate one of them up to the right a little bit, for example. So x, the first number is the amount to the right, and the second number is the amount up or down. So I'm going to just move it 100 pixels right and 100 pixels up. That's what I thought I was going to do. What did I actually do? That didn't work anywhere near as well as I hoped. I've added a scroll bar to it. Okay, let me try something else. Position absolute, top negative 100 pixels, left negative 100 pixels. Wow, this isn't working at all. Why is this not working? This happens a lot when programming, as things don't work. So it might be to do with the fact that I'm using top left. Translate negative 10 pixels, negative 10 pixels. Okay, well that's odd. I've got 2 fireworks now. I don't know why this one has gone up to the top though. I know. Do I know? No, because these are all positioned absolute. Huh. I might have to position. Ah, I get it. Okay, I'm going to just quickly show you what's gone wrong here. So if I was to add a background color to this, no, I don't get it actually, but I'm gonna try and see if I understand what's going on. Background color red, and for F2 I'm gonna say background color blue. Nope. So both of these, this is a tricky little thing, because the dots are positioned absolutely. These wrapper divs don't actually have any size at all. So if I was to, though, actually use absolute positioning on both of these and set width to 100% and height to 100% and top to 0 and left to 0, so explicitly say where this is, then I think the translate will probably now work better. I'm not sure. Yeah, so this is odd in that without setting this size of the box and the position of the box, this transform wasn't working how I wanted it to. But now that I've done this, I can move this up into the left. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they were different colors, which I can do by actually setting a different kind of selector here. I can nest these selectors, so I can do .f1.inner and set one of these to blue. And one more thing I can probably do using this, and I'm not going to explain why this works today, maybe I'll go more into this tomorrow, is I should be able to change the animation as well. I should be able to set .f1, I should be able to set the animation and add like a tiny delay to it, so that there we go. I think that's alright for a first shot at this in 30 minutes. So I hope you've learned something. If you've got any questions, leave it in the comments, and I guess I'll try to answer tomorrow. Or if you've got any requests, even if you're not watching right now, yeah, just leave a comment and I'll see if I can answer it in tomorrow's live coding session. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.